hosted by IIT Madras and XDIC. I hope you found the day one inspiring with engaging discussions, panelists, and trailblazing ideas. So once again, I'm Deepthi Rostos, your host for the day. I'm an XR enthusiast and also a research scholar from Haptics Lab. So please note, there have been some adjustments to the agenda. A few sessions originally planned for the morning have been rescheduled to afternoon from between 1:45 to 2:45 in this hall itself. We appreciate your flexibility, and I'll show you these updates will only enhance your experience today. So let's get started. So first, we have our keynote speech to kick off the day too. We have the absolute pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker, Dr. Anna LaValle. So to give a small introduction about her, Dr. LaValle is a university lecturer at the Center for Ubiquitous Computing in the Faculty of Information Technology and Electrical Engineering. She was an early founder and research scientist at Oculus VR, where she contributed to head tracking methods and the core mathematical software used in Oculus Rift and Samsung Gear VR. With a PhD in computer science and a career spanning computational biology, robotics, and virtual reality, she has also co-authored math textbooks used in schools across Russia and Ukraine. So let's welcome Dr. Anna LaValle to the stage. Let's give her a warm round of applause.
Okay. Can you hear me? Well, okay, let me see. Can I walk here? No, right? Okay, so I'll stay. Oh, there's a hand. Okay. Hello? Maybe I'll use this. That's okay. That's okay. That works. So I'm really humbled to be here, and it's a big pleasure to finally meet you all. Many of you are students in our course that we just ran in collaboration with Professor Manivanan and his TAs. And this was really a pleasure. So I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I'm really happy to be here. So I want to talk today about things, challenges in teaching this kind of courses that we're thinking on everyday basis with my colleagues. So what are the challenges in running massive courses on education for virtual reality? So I'm Anna LaValle. Thank you very much for introducing me. It was a really nice introduction. And this is my talk outline, so let's go through these points. I'm an educator, so I'll start with the definition of virtual reality systems, just so that we see kind of a big picture of what we are talking about. And I'll talk a little bit about my background and goals and what brought me here, and that will really come to challenges in virtual education, in virtual reality education that I'm thinking about and we're trying to solve with our efforts. Then I'll talk about VR applications, and I know that you know what are VR applications, and I know what are VR applications. And yet I want to ask a question, what is VR good for? And I think it's a very good question, because all of you know what it is good for, and I know. But imagine that you go on a street, and not at IIT campus, but somewhere in Chennai or any other random city in the world, and you pick a random person and ask them what is VR good for? And chances are they never tried VR. In fact, in my courses, when I ask my students, did you try VR? About 40% say, no, I haven't tried it yet. And these are engineering and computer science students. So they haven't tried it. So if VR is so good and there's so many applications, why is it that is not massively adopted yet, right? So there should be some problems about the technology. And that's tightly related to challenges in teaching VR as well. So I'll mention adoption rates of virtual reality hardware at this in 2024. And then I'll go to teaching virtual reality challenges. So if you were to teach VR course in your classroom, what hardware would you use? What software would you choose to use? Which topics would you cover? And I want to mention specifically human perception consideration. That is, there's a part of VR system, and that's very easy to forget, but there's a part of the VR system that is organic. That is user's brain and their vision system, and that's very easy to ignore. But if you ignore that, then you cannot design good hardware, software, or education in virtual reality. And I'll show you examples why it's crucial. And I'll finish with just an outline of what are the available courses in worldwide and programs on virtual reality, and what is our small contribution in this area with teaching in partnership with IIT Madras, and also courses that we offer at University of Oulu on VR. So let's go through definition, and those of you who took this course this year, you've seen this definition. So what is a VR system? VR system would induce a targeted behavior in an organism by using artificial sensory stimulation, while the organism would have little or no awareness of the interference. So that's the definition that we offer in our courses. So here's an example. The organism is a human. And there's a lot of interference to different senses, right? There's a headset for the eyes, headphones for hearing, a lot of tactile stimulation through the treadmill, through the tactile vest, through the controllers. So clearly this is a VR system, but a very similar setup is for a mouse here that is also on a treadmill. And while the mouse moves and makes turns, this cave-like projection environment responds correspondingly. So there's a tracking implemented in the system. And the mouse also feels quite involved because scientists observe this in this kind of settings, the organisms to explore environments and complete some kind of tasks. And the last example is a fruit fly on a treadmill, also exploring a virtual environment. So here I want to point out that from this general perspective of looking at VR systems, it's actually quite useful to do it this way, because that might open doors to maybe testing VR systems on other organisms. It's not only for humans. VR can be for other animals or lower life organisms. And it also opens the door to maybe learn something about organisms using VR, which is one of the very important use cases for virtual reality. So scientists use virtual reality to actually understand something about neural processes and brains of the organisms. So that's why I wanted to stop on this definition to look at virtual reality from a more general perspective. But now let's go, I just want to talk a little bit about my background, which I think was already very well covered in the introduction. So yes, I finished my PhD in 2008 in robotics and motion planning. And after that, I started teaching at the University of Illinois, but we took a small detour with my husband and worked at Oculus for 2 years. Right from the beginning, several days after the Kickstarter video campaign was released, until the acquisition by Facebook. And that really impacted me quite a lot. So this experience was so impactful that after coming back to academia again, I wanted to teach virtual reality, and I started teaching these courses in 2015. You can see my students here, including Catherine, who is still with us here in the audience. And I'm still doing it, and I'm really excited about doing it because, learning never stops. There's always a challenge how to do it. So how do we do this teaching? And I'm specifically interested in massive education on virtual reality because I feel like there's not enough people in the world just know what this technology is, and there will be lots of opportunities for jobs in this area. So we should educate students. So I'm interested in MOOCs, like setting where we have a massive number of students. But let's come back to this question, what is VR good for? And of course, VR is great for many, many things. art, right? This is a new medium for artists to express themselves, and very famous artists already have done some kind of contributed to this domain with like Elton John and Paul McCartney and Björk, and many other artists already have fairs where they showcase their their artistic yes, sorry, yes. I have stage fright, by the way, so I don't know. Being an educator, having stage fright is fun. Okay, so architecture is another application, and we talked with many of you about application in architecture, virtual design, virtual prototyping, digital twins. So all of this is very important application of virtual reality. Education, it's not only about teaching virtual reality courses, it's also teaching other courses using virtual reality as a tool, right? So you can, it's much easier to show some kind of models in virtual reality without having physical models in your classroom, right? So it's about biology, it's about physics. So I had a student who created this amazing physics lab already in 2017, where you could throw things and see how they fly and build graphs relating accelerations to forces, to whatever is needed to learn in that physics lab. And it was amazing. But again, I don't see physics teachers across the globe adopting this technology in their classrooms. So the question is why? It is an amazing VR lab. But why is it not widely adopted? VR tourism, so you can take your 360 camera anywhere, and then you can allow other people to travel to places. You can stick that camera on a robot, have some kind of VR telepresence. Again, why don't we see this happening? We brought, for example, Steve and I, we brought 360 camera here, and we forget to use it. And, you know, and then how will we use it in the end? It's very easy to make people sick with this kind of technology. So again, the question is, why is it not widely adopted yet? And the last application that I'll mention is science. So here, this is a very important application. Virtual reality provides such a controlled setting that you can create very controlled stimuli that will allow you then to study the neural processes that occur in organisms with those conditions, and that's invaluable. Physical settings did not allow for such control and such flexibility. So, and metaverse. Metaverse, of course, that's what we are all thinking we'll be living in what, 10 years, 20 years? So we'll not use our phones. Whatever we do with our phones for social media, we'll be doing it instead of metaverse. And yet, it's still yet to be seen, right, that it's going to happen. Yes? All of our activities will be moved there. So going to the bank, giving lectures, doing this right now. Anything that we do on phones like Skype, Facebook, Instagram, all of those will move into this more immersive setting. That's how I define metaverse. I don't want to go through videos, that will take much more time, but here's an example of hyperspace is one of the examples. Metaverse that they're building is another example. So essentially all of the activities, all of the social activities can be done there, right? You can have your house, you can live there, you can watch TV in a virtual house instead of doing it in your real house, right? So daily activities. So let's look at VR adoption rates, because now we want to ask this question. So what is VR good for? And why is it that us in this room, we know about it, but usually a random person on the street doesn't? About 14 million headsets, high-end HMDs, are shipped per year at this point. Compare that to 1.5 billion smartphones shipped per year. And so it's much more likely that a random student in my classroom will have a cell phone or a smartphone. They might have a tablet, or at least they share a tablet or a PC with their family, but it's very unlikely that they will own a high-end HMD. And I think that answers the question, why people never tried VR, because they just don't have access to the hardware. So now let's go back to how to teach virtual reality in a classroom. So let's start. You would have to pick hardware first, right? So here's a list. Of course, there's lots of links where you can click what are the best hardware VR headsets for 2024. So here's a snapshot. So what do we see here? There's price ranges from $299 for Meta Quest 3S to $3,500 for Apple Vision Pro. And the best overall is considered to be, the best overall headset is considered to be Meta Quest 3, and it's $499. So that's not accessible to most of people in the world. So I want to look at the teardown of all of these headsets just to see what is there in this hardware that is essential and why is it so expensive. So here on the top right, you can see the teardown of Oculus DK2, then Oculus Quest, and Meta Quest 3. So you can see that electronics is getting much more complex. There is much more custom-made electronics for these headsets, latest headsets. The displays are getting better. The resolution is higher. The frame rate is better. Tracking is better. So the quality of the hardware is getting better. The hardware is not getting cheaper. The hardware is not getting lighter. Maybe not comfortable either, right? So when I put on a headset, I'm not comfortable. I sweat. Let's not talk about even hygiene. So that's another topic, right? So, but the quality of individual hardware pieces are getting better. It's getting better, higher quality. Let's look at the original Palmer Luckey's prototype. It was lighter and cheaper than anything we have on the market right now, because essentially his original prototype was just lenses and a screen, the smartphone screen, and some kind of a mask. And tracking hardware. So IMUs, no cameras at that point. So just 3 degrees of freedom tracking. So I want to point out that the difference between this and the original prototype, in terms of a big picture, there's not much difference. There's 3 main components in all of these designs: optics, tracking hardware, and rendering hardware. Yes, they all got better in quality, but they stayed the same. And fundamentally, this design is flawed because all of these designs have vergence accommodation mismatch problem. That is, there's some kind of not very well studied or understood problem that may lead to discomfort, fundamentally. So what we had to make a serious choice in choosing hardware for our education, and we decided that for the MOOC setting, we might as well just use cardboard because it has all of those 3 main components in hardware. It's light and cheap, and it's not that bad. You can create APKs that are actually pretty reasonable in quality. So what are the pros, except for being light and cheap? Accessible. Now I can expect a student in my classroom, if I have a MOOC-like setting, to purchase a cardboard that costs about $15. So that's really cool. And also, I didn't talk about software yet, but there's a lot of problems with maintaining software for the high-end HMDs. Constant upgrades, constant password changes or verifications, back compatibility problems. All of that is very difficult to expect from any teacher in the classroom worldwide to keep up with. Cardboard use eliminates any of those problems. You just create APKs and they just run on your phone. So that was our choice. We're really happy with this. There's challenges, of course. It's only 3 degrees of freedom tracking. It needs some learning curve with calibration, but those are minimal. So that was our solution to this problem of choosing hardware for our classrooms. Of course, if you have a small classroom, your institution might invest in Oculus Quest 3, and then you distribute it with your students, and that's what we do at University of Oulu. But if you want to educate masses in virtual reality, that's the only reasonable solution that I can think of. Now let's talk about software. So the best software for creating VR experiences is considered to be Unity and Unreal. And that's great. There's learning curve to those, pretty sharp learning curve. If you want to just introduce, if you want to make sure that your students really all get it and learn reasonably well Unity, you might as well spend the entire course just on that. Then there's nothing left, no time left for other topics that are important if you want to educate in virtual reality. There are other tools that are showing up as we speak. So some kind of no-coding types of tools like hyperspace, co-spaces. I haven't looked at them yet because these are very recent developments. Maybe they'll be good for classroom settings, maybe not. But we should definitely keep on lookout for this kind of tools. However, I have to say that fundamentally, the tools that we can use now, such as Unity and Unreal, are also wrong for creating virtual reality experiences. Both Unreal and Unity are game engines. That means it's very easy to create an environment, virtual reality environment, where your avatar walks and explores spaces. Is that really all that VR is good for? Is that all what we do? I mean, think about other things that we do as humans. We not necessarily just walk. We sit, we think, we imagine, we meditate, we daydream, we write, we draw. So walking environment is just not all of it. And it's Unity and Unreal will prevent you from creating and implementing many of the other activities that we might be interested in using VR. So they're not ideal tools at all as well. But in our courses, we are stuck with Unity at this point. So if you have any ideas, please send me an email and tell me what else we could use, because I don't know a better tool, and it's not ideal. Now, what topics to cover? Plenty of topics. If you want to teach virtual reality in a classroom, there's so many things that you should cover, from development in Unity, which might take a significant amount of time in your course already. You want to introduce students to hardware because you want them to understand the global picture, the big picture of fundamental flaws of hardware, of challenges in hardware. There could be just a class entirely just on hardware, putting together a simple headset, for example. That would be very useful because maybe then future generation could create better hardware, or could understand what hardware should be appropriate for virtual reality. Software, you could just spend all of your time on software. In fact, there are so many courses out there that adapt their game courses to teaching virtual reality, or adapt their graphics courses to teaching virtual reality. But that's not all to virtual reality. So you should educate your students on other things like human perception. Without understanding human perception, it's so easy to create bad virtual reality experiences. Because ultimately, it's your brain and it's your vision system and other senses that will make sense of this experience that you're providing in virtual reality. I mean, think about it. What are you presenting with virtual reality screen to the user? You're having a screen that is split into two, and there are quite different images in those two parts of the cell phone screen. And it's your brain that analyzes this display and creates this 3D picture of a world that you believe you're immersed in. So it's an illusion. If you're creating these illusions, you better understand how do you do that and how your brain creates this illusion and what else can happen. If you understand these processes, then your virtual reality experiences might be more comfortable, might be more engaging, might be more immersive, might be more realistic, plausible. They might achieve better goals, whatever goals you're trying to achieve with these virtual reality experiences. They might train students better and other things that you want to do. So this is essential. And then you may teach your courses just on VR applications, how to build the best firefighting simulator experiences or medical simulation experiences. And by the way, just talking about, thinking about talks yesterday, legal aspect of all of this. We're not even, I never spent any time on talking about legal aspects. That your data, your track data in VR is actually your personal data that should be protected. So that's not even, am I out of time? I'm out of time? Oh, just questions. Okay. Well, I guess I covered most of the things. I just wanted to finish up with all of the courses in the world. There are many courses. Okay. So maybe 5 more minutes. Because what I wanted to, okay, 5 more minutes. Is that okay? Because I wanted to mention some things about perception, that only understanding perception, only understanding human physiology of human vision and neural processes, you can understand certain fundamental problems with virtual reality and the hardware and software. One example, frame rate. Yes, manufacturers are trying to increase the frame rate to where? Indefinitely. Fundamentally, flicker may never be eliminated in virtual reality, no matter what you do. Just because of the way we move so fast that no matter what the frame rate is on your hardware, you may experience flicker. And you can only understand that when you see the global picture and the fact that perception is a large portion of the system. So human, the user, is part of the system.